Ho ho buddies, one's Borderline Games. I'm Gareth and today we're playing Chaos Head. Last time, Remy has got her memories back. For whatever that means. She has them back. She has now vowed to protect Takumi, and that means coming to the hospital to confront Noah the Second. I think. That's what I think is happening. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. Let's carry on. Noah the Second, the bringer of calamity, or perhaps the creator of utopia for humanity. Whichever it was, it meant nothing to Remy. Whichever it was something Remy had to destroy. Noah the Second's location was already a known fact to her, a mutual recognition silently yet tactfully planted into the people's consciousness. Despite it being right in front of Shibuya Station, despite the building having been demolished years ago, it was there, with none suspecting a thing. No one even tried to go inside. Remy opened the door towards the former planetarium, where no signs of human presence could be found, and stepped inside. So, everybody is under the delusion that the building isn't there anymore, but it is. Is that what we're saying? I think so. There's Nanami. Remy's eyes went wide at the scene she saw before her. There stood a device that was beyond enormous. Enshrined in the center of the dome-shaped room, it could be described only as a monster. Oh, and Nanami's there as well. An ominous sound rang faintly throughout the spacious room. It was a low-pitched noise akin to the deep growl of a beast, a sound that signified the device's operation. Noah the Second. Noah 2. Noah Lala. Noah II. Nana-chan. Nishijou Nanami was being held captive right next to the device. Her uniform was torn and a bandage soaked with blood was wrapped around her right wrist. Her head hung toward the floor and she looked terribly, terribly pale. Faced with such a pitiable sight, Remy was at a loss for words. Crucified in Jesus of Nazareth's likeness. In Jesus of Nazareth's likeness. Why is that so hard to say? No. What held her now could not be called a cross. It was something far different, for it took the shape of a pure, unadulterated malice. The entirety of this world's evil, the entirety of this world's disorder, the entirety of this world's immorality. It would be no exaggeration to refer to it as a symbol sculpted to those very attributes. Keeping her guard up, Remy swiftly checked her surroundings. There was no one else there besides Nanami. She found no traces of the man who had prompted the development of Noah the Second, the man who had performed ruthless, torturous experiments on her, Norose Genichi. Although surprised by that fact, Remy prioritized Nanami's rescue and ran toward the tableau crucifying her. Nana-chan, hang on. Blowing Nanami from the tableau, Remy sighed in relief after confirming she was still breathing. First and foremost, she had to get Nanami somewhere safe. To achieve this end, Remy went to pick her up. However, and then... Oh! An intense pain surged in her back, as if something was gouging out her very flesh. Remy vomited blood that stained Nanami's uniform. My, it's our first time seeing each other again after so unbearably long. Yet not even a greeting. So he was probably always there, but there was a delusion making it impossible for him to be seen. Enduring the pain, Remy turned her head. Hello. Norose Genichi was standing right behind her. And in his hand was the tableau that had been clasping Nanami only a moment ago. However, it was not a tableau but a sword. Norose Genichi's D-sword. That very blade was now piercing through her body. Norose slowly drew his hand back. The sharp blade of his D-sword bored into her body, slid through her flesh, and scraped against the surface of her bones. Her body arched in involuntary spasms, spurred on by the sharp, agonizing pain as her body was slowly being sliced apart. Ugh. Oh. Shouldn't you be more than accustomed to pain? At last, Norose's sword released her. A torrent of blood came gushing free. Every nerve in her body was screaming out in agony. Even now, she felt as if she was about to pass out from the sheer pain. That girl is a precious decoy required to lure out Nishijou Takumi. Having her taken away on a whim would present quite the trouble. Ugh. Rimi was well aware of the magnitude of Norose's powers as a giglomaniac. She'd been imprisoned by the man for over 3 years after all. In a fair fight, she would not stand a chance. And in this situation, he would never let her go. The mere idea of doing so would have been unfathomable to him. Apparently I can't talk. At the very least, I have to make sure Nana-chan escapes. The taste of blood spread through her mouth. She was continually assailed by the fierce urge to vomit. The open wound on her back was hot, as if seared by flame. The sheer pain coursing through her left her unable to move. Blood was still rushing out without pause. It felt as if her consciousness was about to be severed. It was so terribly cold. Her eyes grew hazy, and amid her fading vision she saw what resembled a scornful smile forming on Norose's face. This might be it for me. Rimi couldn't envision a delusion in which she managed to escape from this man's clutches. Only despair governed her heart. Who's this? Is this, Takumi? As in, you know, old Takumi.
I'll grant you my power.
Maybe. Huh? It was a voice Rimi knew very well, it has to be. Nishijou Takumi. Or the boy presenting himself as Shogun. The voice came from a distant place. If defined, it was in a manner akin to thought transference. In other words, telepathy. A feat made only possible by giglomania.
I grant my final delusion to you.
Takumi.
I'm sorry for leaving you with such a difficult duty. I've come to understand that it's impossible to go against your will, so I won't try to do so anymore.
You plan to die, don't you? If there was a way to fix things without dying, I would have done it. Oh no, that was him. That was Takumi.
You plan to die, don't you? Given that he is not awakened, there isn't much I can do. So at least let me do this. Let me grant my final delusion to you.
What are you saying? There's no reason for you to... Even though he had no presence in this place, Rimi shouted at the person she was speaking to.
You're the only one person I absolutely cannot let die. I was the source behind all of this, so I can't let you suffer for it.
But...
That's enough. Rimi, I need you to kill Norose. And then, I need you to destroy Noah the Second. I'll provide backup.
Rimi's teeth sank into her lip and she wiped away her tears. Despite it growing more and more distant with every passing second, she did everything in her power to hold on to her consciousness. Who are you talking to? She rebooted her D-sword. Countless fluttering feathers came falling down. Cradling Nanami with one hand, she held her sword in the other. The dripping sound landed at her feet conveyed the terrible amount of blood she had lost. The bleeding had yet to stop, but her wound was one that would never allow it to. single slash of Norose's sword, one capable of bringing down all that stood against it. Rimi took the blow with her sword as she covered for Nanami. Or covered Nanami, but their difference in weight proved fatal. Rimi could not take one of the Norose's blows head on with her small build. She was blown backward, and she slammed into the wall behind her. Ugh! A crack tore through the wall of the planetarium's dome. I even went to the trouble of letting you live, and this is how you repay me? Do you still desire more torment? Norose slowly walked toward Rimi. His face was one of pure, unending confidence. Every facet of his being stood high above, looking down on her with great derision. Ever the sadist, aren't you? Rimi grinned, but her smile was a strained one. And then, for some reason only she could have known, she swung her sword toward the cracked wall behind her. The wall collapsed, exposing the scenery of the outside world. It was raining. Dense rain clouds coated the sky. Do you mean to run? I won't run away. But... Rimi sat Nanami down on the ground, releasing her from her hold. Still holding her sword tight, she wrapped her arms around Nanami from behind. Nana-chan has nothing to do with this. Rimi crafted a delusion, a single dazzling ray of light. What's happening? By the time the light had subsided, the wing-shaped D-sword Rimi held was no longer there. In their place, snow-white feathers had grown from Nanami's back. She's an angel. Pure, untainted wings enveloped the blood-stained girl. It was a gruesome yet unendingly beautiful sight. Her form was like that of an angel. That's what I said. Nanami was unconscious. Yet, as if they had a will of their own, the wings that adorned her began to flap. Oh, it was from Nanami that sprouted wings for some weird reason. That's Rimi's delusion. Rimi parted from Nanami. Deeply bemused, Norose watched as Nanami flew up through the giant hole that had been opened in the planetarium. Slowly and steadily, she glided through Shibuya as the rain incessantly poured. Now unarmed, Rimi watched as she flew. Nana-chan, be safe. I see. Using your delusions, you turned your D-sword into a pair of wings. Do you no longer plan to run? Norose already had Rimi within range of his own D-sword. He could send her head flying with a simple swing. Nevertheless, Rimi stared right back at him, bereft of all fear. I can't run. I can't run just yet. Because I have to kill you first. From her pocket, Rimi retrieved a cross with a dark sheen. Oh, is it from the crucifixion case? To be precise, however, it was not a cross, but rather a stake, the same as those that had been used in the crucifixion case. In that very moment, Rimi had just rebooted one. Oh, okay. Upon witnessing this display, Norose could not help but raise a scornful laughter. Kill me with that toy, that plaything! You greatly underestimate me. The blow was far too fast. Uh-oh. Norose's D-sword, far longer than he was tall, was at a speed thought unthinkable. Within mortal constraints, it tore through Rimi's flank. Only when her body had already begun to stagger from the slash did she realise she'd been cut. Ah! Ah! Rimi collapsed, screaming at the top of her lungs from the sheer pain. Norose's attack was not one meant to kill. He could have killed her whenever he wished at this point, but he intentionally refrained from doing so. Approaching the writhing girl, he trampled down on her arm. Repeatedly alternating between pained breaths and gritting her teeth, Rimi eventually stopped moving, and she had no other choice. The tip of Norose's enormous sword was right up against her blood-drenched back, but he'd yet to pierce her with it. Would you be so kind as to say that one more time? Stop. I will not stop. In light of her request, Norose pushed his sword forward with great strength. Oh man. Ah! The tip of his sword further gouged the flesh of her blood-stained body, clawing even deeper into her. It was as if he was pinning an insect for him to display. So, I believe you said you would kill me, or did I simply mishear you? And yet Remy, still lying prone to the ground, reached for Norose's leg with one hand and grabbed onto it. She clung to him as tightly as she could. The depths of her teary eyes harboured resolute flames of determination. They glared at the scornful man from below. I'll kill you. I'll put you to rest forever. Pulling his sword out from her, Norose kicked Remy in the jaw with all of his strength. Her body tumbled across the floor like a rag doll. It seems that in the time we've spent apart, you've grown to be a rather displeasing human being. You have served your purpose. I let you live believing you were worth using later on, but I found myself no longer in need of you. Remy was on the verge of death. She tried pushing her body up from the floor and crawling toward Norose, but without her D-sword, and being unable to walk, she might as well have been already dead. Until the very moment your life slips away, I ask that you never let those impertinent remarks leave your mind. But before you reach that end, I propose... yes. How about I torture you every day for, let's say, 3 years, 30 years? Inside a delusion, of course. Or what he did to Takumi. Feathers? Norose's lips twisted, keeping the collapsed girl surrounded by fluttering feathers within his sight. He formed a delusion. He strengthened his grasp on his D-sword. We need some kind of Uno Reverso, don't we? And opened his channel into the direct sea. The particles and antiparticles needed to materialize his delusion had now been created. And from those two collections, only the particles, through the signals of light that were established as sight, were sent into Sakihata Remy's dead spots. That's exactly what I've been waiting for. What? Ooh, look. Whose eyes are those eyes? In a single instant, the fluttering feathers transformed into eyes. Until this very moment, the only eyes watching him had been Remy's, but now he was surrounded by an innumerable number of floating eyes. Gotcha. Whose eyes are those eyes? It was the last illusion Takumi had bestowed upon her. The particles Norose had sent were impeded by the countless eyes, rendering them unable to reach Remy's dead spots, and those eyes connected to the direct sea discharged many antiparticles. An indomitable defense which cancelled out the power of a Gigamaniac. Only because he was Nishijiro Takumi. Only because he was a Gigamaniac powerful enough to create a human. Only because he had exhausted the final embers of his own life. Could such a monstrous delusion have been rebooted? Astonished by the eyes surrounding him, Norose gulped. No matter where he looked, there were only eyes watching him. Not only did their numbers refuse to dwindle, but they grew with no end. They buried Norose's entire field of vision, and then they moved in toward him. Norose was instinctively overwhelmed by an intense fear. Gritting his teeth, he swung his D-sword. The cut eyes gushed blood, closed their eyelids and vanished. But right behind every eye there was another. No matter how many he cut down, their numbers remained the same. Don't look at me! If that's what you want. Oh, hang on. That's, Remy, surely. That's what you want, then. Don't open your eyes ever again. Norose suddenly felt a great pressure on his chest. In the very next moment, signals of pain sounded in his brain. Shing! As if there were a cloud of mist clearing away, the eyes that surrounded him all vanished without a trace. Before Norose's eyes stood Rimi, and in her hand was the cross-shaped stake, lodged deep in Norose's chest. And thus, that was his end. Oh, easy. After confirming Norose's death, Rimi fell to her knees, debilitated. She was bleeding terribly, her face pale as porcelain. She was barely even conscious now. Pained, irregular breathing seeped from her mouth. Her eyes no longer saw anything. She could still faintly hear the ominous sounds of Noah II, designating its status as fully operational. Is this going to be a trick? Is Norose going to have tricked Rimi? I guess I've got no choice but to entrust someone else with destroying it. I'm sorry, Taku. In a faint, almost inaudible voice, Rimi whispered into the air. I don't think I'll be able to keep my promise. I saved Nana-chan. I know that's not enough to pay for my sins, but still, I saved her. Rimi sluggishly raised her face. There should have been a section of the planetarium's wall that had collapsed. A section through which the sky should have been peeking. But a few moments ago, it had been veiled completely by a collection of rain clouds. And because of that, she could only wonder. Her eyes no longer allowed her to confirm its colour, but... Takahata Rimi showed a faint smile as she looked up to the sky. I still wish I could have seen the sky with you. Just one more time. Taku. Thank you. So we're back with Takumi now, are we? When I opened the door to my base and stepped out, a clear blue sky jumped into view. I had the feeling that it had been raining, but it must have cleared up pretty fast. I hadn't been able to find Rimi anywhere. She'd vanished without a single word to me. Once again, she'd disappeared on me. I'd been waiting and waiting for hours on end, but she never came back. Instead, waiting outside my base was... Oh, there he is. Ah, Shogun! Moving very slowly, the wrinkly boy in the wheelchair looked directly at me. Terrified, my legs gave out on me and I fell to the ground.
You're free now.
Huh?
In less than an hour, my time will come. The entity posing a threat to you was killed by Rimi.
Hearing her name sent a wave of relief through me. Rimi had tried her hardest to protect me.
I was the one who hid Aoi Senna and Arihara Kozuri's corpses.
Really? How did you do that? With a delusion, no doubt.
Nanami was safely admitted to the hospital. Therefore, you're free now.
I didn't understand. Wasn't he my enemy? What about Rimi? Where did she go?
Rimi won't be coming back.
What?
Adieu.
Shogun skillfully maneuvered his wheelchair and turned his back on me. Oh, okay. I blinked once, and within that time frame, one that hadn't even spanned a single second, Shogun had vanished without a trace. What the hell? What had just happened? Only a couple moments after that, I heard a low-pitched, quaking noise in the distance. Looking over toward the center of Shibuya, I saw something. As if there'd been a giant explosion. A single cloud of dense black smoke was making its way up into the sky. Something had happened. No, something was happening. An uprising. Something paranormal. Or maybe even a battle between Giglomaniacs. Whatever it was, it scared the hell out of me. That mysterious appearance from Shogun had also scared the hell out of me. I didn't want to go anywhere near that, what was happening over... I didn't want to go anywhere near what was happening over there. Out there. Remy won't be coming back. But Remy could have been over there. She'd disappeared once again, and yet I was surprisingly calm. It was strange. For some reason I didn't feel like I'd been betrayed this time. This time. I had the strong belief that Remy was somewhere out there, struggling all alone, trying to her absolute hardest for my sake. But Remy, haven't you done enough? Haven't you faced enough hardships as it is? You shouldn't have to suffer any longer. There's no reason to. It's not right. I remembered the soft sensation of her lips. I was going to look for her. I'd had enough of not doing anything, of staying in my room all day like a coward. Our future. For both Remy and I. In the lives that we shared. There were so many incredible, amazing things waiting for us in the future. I chose to believe, and I knew in my heart that it was right to do so. I chose to believe that, and I knew in my... let's try that again. Sometimes it's just hard, alright? I chose to believe that, and I knew in my heart that it was the right thing to do, or that it was right to do so. Still didn't get it. Well, no, hang on. We'll go to school in the morning. Talk about whatever comes to mind in between classes. Eat together at lunchtime. Then at the end of the day, we'll head back home. Sometimes stopping by a shop or two on the way back. When we do get back, we'll chat for a bit in your room. And then when you're all tuckered out, we'll say goodbye with a nice wave and a see you tomorrow. If you're fine with that, I can definitely go the distance. I've always wanted to be that person for someone. Is this Remy talking or Takumi? Oh, now I understood. Oh, I see. I understood what she meant by those words. How much she wished for such a simple life. When I thought back on everything, I realised that the time I'd spent with her had been only a few hours in total, but I loved every last second of it. I was always happy when I was with her. To me, who had gone through every day all alone as a shut-in, living as though I was dead, Remy's smile had been my sole source of hope. It told me that a bright future existed ahead of me. Remy had smiled for my sake. So now, she should smile for her own sake. I believed she would come back, but this wasn't my usual escapism, hoping to avoid reality. No. This was my resolve. I would believe only in her, for she had promised me she would be with me forever. So get moving. Move your ass, Nishijou Takumi. And so in order to see her again, I headed toward the destroyed Shibuya. Wow, is this the end? Wait for me, Remy. I'll find you. I know I will. And this time, this is a funny song. I'll stay by your side. I'll stay by your side. Wow, there we go. What a cute song to end it on. So that's another end of a route. We're getting so close to the end of this entire game, guys. I think we've just got one more route, and I think it's not actually that long. So, let's have a look what it's called. I think it might be called the Blue Sky Ending. Where have I put my phone? It's such a squeaky chair. How'd you fix a squeaky chair? That's enough of that song now, yeah. Okay. Reached Remy's ending. Awesome. So, the last ending, I believe, is called... Blue Sky, it's right there. Wow, Blue Sky Ending. And we're going to be doing that next time on Borderline Games. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Chaos Head. The penultimate episode of Chaos Head, maybe. I will see you next time. Have a good evening. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye-bye-bye-bye-bye.